You know that one favorite t-shirt you have? The one that's been through countless washes and still looks great? But then there's that other one, the one that shranked or faded almost immediately. What's the deal with that? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on the whole process and introduce you to the unseen guardians who make sure your clothes are built to last.
Right? We've all been there. You buy two shirts, they look pretty much the same, but one becomes this go-to piece in your wardrobe, and the other one, well, it's a total disappointment. So what is the secret ingredient here? What really separates the good stuff from the stuff that just falls apart?
Now, I'll tell you what, it is definitely not luck. The secret is this incredibly intense quality control journey. A whole series of checkpoints at every single yard of fabric and every finished piece of clothing has to pass before it even has a chance of getting to you.
So, to really get this, we need to look at the two main battlegrounds where quality is decided. Think of these as the main gatekeepers standing between a flawed garment and your closet.
It all boils down to two big phases. First up, you've got fabric inspection. This is where the raw material, the cloth itself, is put under a microscope before anyone even thinks about cutting it. And then there's apparel inspection, which is all about checking the garment as it's being sewn together and, of course, once it's finished.
So you might be asking, why go through all this trouble? Well, the goals are actually super simple and really, really important. If you can catch problems early, you save a ton of time and money, and that, in turn, means the final product is way better, and it helps make sure everything ships out on time. It's just smart.
Okay, so let's follow a piece of clothing right from the very beginning. Before a single scissor touches the fabric, that raw material has to go through its first and maybe its most critical test. You could call it the fabric's trial by fire.
So what does that look like? Picture these huge rolls of fabric being carefully unrolled onto inspection machines. There's often a bright light table underneath, which shines up through the cloth, making it super easy for a trained inspector to spot any little flaw. We're talking holes, stains, tears, even tiny printing mistakes.
But this isn't just someone giving it a quick look over. To make this whole process objective, the industry uses what's called the 4-point system. It's actually a pretty clever way to take something subjective, like saying, that's a small tear, and turn it into hard data by giving every flaw a specific number of penalty points.
And the system itself, it's brilliantly simple. A little defect, something up to 3 inches, gets 1 penalty point. The bigger the flaw, the more points it gets, all the way up to 4 points for really big defects or for any significant holes. It's straightforward and super effective.
Now, all those little points add up to one critical number, 40. If a standard 100 square yard roll of fabric gets 40 or more penalty points, it's out. It fails the inspection, gets rejected, and is sent right back where it came from. It never even makes it to the cutting table.
Okay, so a fabric might look perfect to the naked eye, but its real quality is more than skin deep. After that visual check, it's time for a bunch of physical and chemical tests to see how it's actually going to perform out there in the real world.
Think about color fading. How do you measure that without just guessing? Well, inspectors use these standardized charts called grayscales. They'll expose a little piece of the fabric to things like washing, light, or even fake sweat, and then they compare the color change to the shades on the scale. It gives them a consistent numerical rating for how well the color holds up. Pretty cool, right? And here's another big one, color transfer. You know, when a new dark wash jean turns your legs blue, they test for that. A machine called a crocking meter literally rubs a white cloth against the fabric, both wet and dry, to see if any of the dye comes off. This little test is exactly what stops your new red shirt from turning your friend's white couch pink.
All right, so once the fabric has passed all those tests, it finally gets the green light. Now let's move on to the next stage, where that approved fabric starts to become an actual piece of clothing. See, quality control doesn't just wait around until the end. As the garment is being sewn, inspectors are doing what they call in-process checks. They're pulling samples right off the production line and looking at all the little details. Is the stitching good? Are the seams the right width? Are the measurements spot on?
And they don't just look at it either. The inspectors get really hands-on. They put these sample garments through a series of physical tests to make sure they don't just look good, but that they can actually handle being worn.
These performance tests are all about simulating real life. They'll put it on a mannequin to check the fit and drape. They'll do a fatigue test on zippers and buttons. That means opening and closing them over and over, sometimes 50 times in a row. And they'll do a stretch test to make sure elastic parts don't snap or cause the stitches to pop. So, after all these checks and tests along the way, the finished garment has to face one last trial. This is it,
the final verdict, where the entire batch is judged on its quality. Here's how it works. Once most of the order is packaged up and ready to ship, an inspector comes in for one last, super rigorous check. Now, they don't look at every single item. Instead, they pull a totally random sample, and the quality of that small selection determines the fate of the entire shipment. Talk about pressure. During this final inspection, any flaw they find gets sorted into one of three categories. A critical defect is the absolute worst. We're talking something that could actually harm someone, like a broken needle left in a seam. Then you have major defects, which make the garment unusable. And finally, minor defects, which are small things like a loose thread that don't really affect how you wear it.
Now, major defects are the real deal breakers here. These are the kinds of problems that mean you just can't sell the item. Think about things like the measurements being completely wrong, or a very obvious hole, a broken button, or a zipper that just won't zip. If an inspector finds too many of these, the whole shipment could be rejected on the spot.
So, we've gone through this whole incredibly detailed journey, from fabric rolls to final inspections. But let's bring it all back home and talk about why this whole thing matters so much to you and me. When you get right down to it, it's all about this. Every single test, every checkpoint, every penalty point, it's all designed for one simple reason: to make sure the clothes that end up in your closet are safe, that they're durable, and that they fit exactly the way you expect them to.
So, the next time you pull on that favorite shirt, just take a second to think about the incredible journey it went on. From the inspector staring at it over a light table to the person testing its zipper 50 times. There was a whole team of unseen guardians working to make sure it was perfect. It's their hard work that turns a simple piece of cloth into something you actually love to wear. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.